Another Vampire Coast reveal today. We kind of got our first little glimpse at Luther Harkin's camp. Well, our first little glimpse, our first full glimpse at Luther Harkin and what he's going to be like in Curse of the Vampire Coast. In addition to that, we got these three other silhouettes of three other lords for the four legendary lords of this campaign pack. So in this video today, we're going to talk about Luther Harkin real quick. We're going to look at his campaign abilities. Then we're going to talk about who these other three legendary lords might, could, or are. I mean, I'll be totally honest with you guys, these two are completely obvious to me. This one, shot in the dark. So today, let's talk about Luther Harkin. Let's go into him first. We know him, Arch Grand Commodore Luther Harkin, and how his brain was scrambled by the glyphs of a lizardman pyramid. Or Temple City, I mean. So he's got some pretty cool faction effects, right? He has absolute hatred for lizardmen, which hampers his diplomatic relations with them, but also gives him an edge with leading armies against them. So probably a bonus to melee attack or something like that of the sort that gives a bonus to his fighters when they attack against lizardmen. Also, he has a fractured mind, right? We've talked about this in our lore video about Luther Harkin and how he you have to roll to see what mental state he's in. So we'll see how that really kind of plays out. But he has a special mount, the Death Shriek Terror Geist. We kind of saw that teased in the initial video of the reveal of the Vampire Coast. We saw that Terror Geist kind of swooping in the background. And he gets a unique item, Slan Gold. This filthy Lucer? I never know how to pronounce that. Reduces the cost of erasing the dead, increasing magic resistance, and reduces the wind of magic starting amount for enemy armies. So really kind of like an anti-mage kind of ability here, right? Like, magic resistant bonus and reduces the winds of magic. That's pretty cool for kind of shutting down other spellcasters against Luther. It makes a lot of sense, right? Luther hates magic in all of its many ways, shapes, and forms because he is so abhorrent to it because it has scrambled and destroyed his brain. Let's take a look at his unique skills here. He's no stranger to battle. His thousands of years of experience bolstering the leadership of the Death Guard and zombie deckhands, as well as increasing hero capacity for vampire fleet captains. Makes a lot of sense. Again, he is the leader, I guess you could say, of the Vampire Coast, the creator of the Vampire Coast in actuality. He has a deep connection to the winds of magic with Valiantly Severed, increasing his magic resistance and reducing, so we already know this, the Severed from the Winds. Hand cannon's pretty cool. We see he's got his really cool little awesome gun here. Well, hand cannon, it increases the missile damage for both himself and his zombie gunnery mobs, which is kind of nifty. Hopefully that'll kind of extend out to the carronade and any of the other gunpowder units in the roster, or maybe that'll actually be reserved. Maybe like an artillery lord will be reserved more for the other lords. Moment of lucidity, flashes of clarity through the madness serve to increase Luther Harkin's armor and melee defense. Kind of cool here. And then Pirate King is the Pirate King of the Vampire Coast. So this reduces his unit upkeep for his army and increases global recruitment capacity. We also have his starting position, pretty obvious here in the Vampire Coast. Not the topmost portion, just the centralmost. So he's going to be up against Lizardmen over here, and then Skaven down here, of course, as well. This is a good map to take a look at because this will probably be the map that we will see when Vampire Coast goes live. So we don't know where all of our lords start, but what's that right there? The Galleon's Graveyard? Noctilus? Huh? Well, we'll talk about that in just a second. And we have his ship. They did talk about how these ships are going to be different. Each lord gets their own ship with its own kind of upgradable traits and qualities and differentiating values, I guess. So I guess this is the Dread Abyssal here. There's nothing to go off of for Luther Harkin. There's no previous art. There's nothing that exists for Luther. The picture that people typically circulate around for Luther Harkin is actually Count Noctilus's picture, and that's who we're going to talk about next. Now, Count Noctilus has got a pretty cool backstory. His original name is Niklaus von Karstein. He is from Sylvania, as you would have expected. I said like I'm at a dating thing. Like, he's from Sylvania. He likes long walks on the beach and undead cats. So Noctilus is pretty cool. He is pretty much the master of the Dread Fleet. And if you know the board game Dread Fleet, where a lot of these names actually come from, you know that it's pretty much him versus Iago Roth. And Iago Roth leads a crusade against Noctilus and his many members of his Dread Fleet. And that includes Xandri, Van Geist, a number of other people, a Skaven ship, a Chaos Dwarf ship. So in Dreadfleet, you've got these lords that hail from all these different locations. Noctilus, though, is a through and through vampire. He is a von Karstein vampire versus Luther Harkin is a blood dragon vampire. Don't get that mixed up. And he has this kind of big halberd in this picture. Every picture I've ever seen of him has actually 2 rapiers. So maybe this is supposed to be him as a kind of more of an anti-large lord, or maybe he's supposed to be more of an AP halberd using lord. I'm not really sure. We don't have any stats of him from tabletop. We do have Dreadfleet kind of stats on him and his swashbuckling capabilities and his ability to kind of fight, but nothing outright that talks about, oh, he's got 5 weapon skill, he's great at these things, so on and so forth. So guys, keep in mind, everything at this point is purely speculative. I'm just talking mainly out of my ass. I know that this is the silhouette of his hat. We've already seen in one picture leaked, and I'll put that up here, not leaked, this is on the Steam page, that we see, what's his name? Noctilus on top of one of the Necroflex Colossus. So we see him on that Colossus. So maybe that is his special mount, right? That would be a really cool, unique mount for him, and that would make, I guess, a lot of sense. But and I'll zoom in on that picture so you can see him right there. He's in the crow's nest. It's kind of cool. And we have, unfortunately, no information about him. But, aha! We know that he hails from the Galleon's graveyard. That is right here, smack dab in the map. That's been added and dropped in. So maybe, just maybe, that's where we're going to find, or that's where the starting location is going to be for Noctilus. We know that he does start in Galleon's graveyard. He would have kind of a natural affinity and I guess propensity to being allied with the vampire coast as a whole, and that I being Luther Harkin. I'm going to assume his faction will be called Dreadfleet or something like that, and his ship is called the Bloody Reaver. Now, the Bloody Reaver is really sick. It's not like normal ships here, right? So the Bloody Reaver is actually a Sylvanian castle that Count Noctilus brought to the sea, and he built upon it and added the ships and hulls, or the hulls of other dead ships, and kind of made this like seafaring hulk. And it's really, 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 really cool. So that is going to be his unique ship. Of course, they could do something else. I could be crazy, but you know what? I like to think I'm not most of the time. Now, let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about our other lady. Let's talk about the Keira Knightley of the Dreadfleet in Aranessa Saltspite. Now, this is clearly evident to me that this is her. If you look at this picture we're about to flash up here, you can see her halberd in this. You can see her kind of bandana across her head, and just everything. You can see that she's got little web hands. This is just obvious to me that this is, you know, the daughter of Manon, the sea god of the Emperor Pantheon. And Aranessa has a pretty interesting backstory. So, guys, what I'm going to actually do is Aranessa, we're going to talk about Van Geist today. We're going to talk about Noctilus. They're all going to get their separate lore videos. So we'll go into their actual lore blurbs from the Dreadfleet book. But I'm just trying, for the sake of time and trying to make this a concise, pointed video, we're not going to go into that too much today. So the cool thing about Aranessa is she's actually a Norskin. She was born from a Norskin woman in the north. And when she came out of the womb, her father was like, ah, shit. It's not a son. Oh, wait, it's she's got webbed hands and a tail. This is a mutant. So he discarded her into the ocean, and miraculously she kind of washed up on shore of this little like island, and she lived on this island for a long time, and eventually she came to Sartosa, and she plied her trade from there and became this big renowned pirate queen from Sartosa. And there's a lot of really cool lore with her. I mean, she actually kind of has the title, the Queen of Tides, Aranessa Saltspite. So she's kind of got this really cool dynamic going with her, and she is a bit different. We don't see a lot of really huge, pivotal female characters in the lore here, but she is very much a Keira Knightley type character. But the interesting thing here is, in Dreadfleet, she actually is in Jago Roth's army, or I guess crusade, against Count Noctilus. So I'm going to assume she starts on Sartosa. She isn't necessarily undead. She actually has more of a Sartosa vibe, an Empire vibe. So maybe she is a dual lord. You know, maybe she's going to take advantage of that, taking in some Empire units into her roster. It would make a lot of sense with her Sartosa background. We've seen a dual lord come with every single lord since then, right? Or in Lord Packish thing. Alariel had high elves and wood spirits. Arkin the Black had vampire counts and access to the whole entire Tomb Kings roster. So maybe this is going to be the dual lord for Curse of the Vampire Coast. Is we get this Empire Vampire Coast dual lord with like Free Company Militia and anything else that's kind of, I guess, swashbucklery. Maybe just Free Company Militia, which would just be cool in and of itself. But I guess you could kind of argue that gunnery mobs are basically Free Company Militia that are dead. But who knows? So she does have a ship, though, these swordfish. This thing's kind of cool. It kind of copies this motif that she has going here. These kind of almost like sawtooth motif, but she has a big unicorn whale horn in the front of her ship that kind of like looks like it's just ready to just to plow through something. So if she starts in Sartosa, because she is, the pirate queen of Sartosa, and maybe she has an immediate aversion to both Noctilus and to the Vampire Coast actual with Harkin. And maybe, this isn't going to be a campaign pack where you've got 4 lords that want to play hand in hand. Just like the Tomb Kings, they're all kind of spread to the 7 winds, and they're so far apart from one another that they can't really ally up. But Harkin isn't a friend of anyone. So maybe it's going to be the same thing here with Aranessa. She's like the anti-Vampire Coast lord, or lady in this case, I guess you could say. So a lot of options that we could possibly see with Aranessa and her roster and what she might actually look like. Let's talk about our last lord on this list, our lady on this list, or whatever that is on this list. She's got a lovely thing going. She's got some fans. She's got a lot of stuff in her repertoire. It looks like I don't know what the hell's going on. This looks like something I'd wear on the weekend. So there are some options here. There's a lot of rumors kicking around, and we've got another lord we can talk about from the Dreadfleet, Van Geist. This doesn't really look like Van Geist. We have a picture of Van Geist. We'll flash up here as well. He has more of a typical like bicone, not tricone hat. And Van Geist is this he was a captain of the ship called the Stormbreaker, and he took on the employ of this Archmage. And the Archmage said, "Hey, you guys have to swear to me and to Manon that you will stay in my service. I'll pay you gold." They said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And that boat basically went north. Stormbreaker went north, and eventually was into the Sea of Chaos and was beset by a lot of like chaotic stuff. There was a big ritual that happened, more or less, and Van Geist was kind of enthralled with this notion of immortality, and he discovered that the Archmage had a way to basically kind of achieve it, and he betrays the Archmage and forsaking the oath that he took and his crew, and his entire crew kind of becomes this damned Curse of the Black Pearl type revenants. Like they're more spectral and ethereal than they are actually corporeal, and they now they man the Shade Wraith, which is the Stormbreaker's now incorporeal self, and Van Geist is still the captain of this ship. And this doesn't look like him though. This doesn't look like something I would see for Van Geist. He looks kind of like a typical. He looks like Captain Barbossa from Curse of the Black Pearl. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. So I don't think this is Van Geist. I think it would be a really cool option, and it would play into the Dreadfleet motif that they've created with the other 2 lords, but I don't think that this is him. Another option that has been kind of kicked around, and man, this is like going deep into the lore, is the Silver Princess. And she has the same fan that we see going on here. She kind of like this. She does have a big, huge kind of sweeping thing that goes up behind her head in the kind of Victorian Elizabethan era Baroque ladies at the time. So it kind of fits this image. And I think that this is definitely a female. It looks to be at least like a female. Or it could be another vampire that we'll talk about in just a second. But Princess Layla, I think was her name. And she was an Arabian princess. There isn't much to go on with her though. There's a really cool little story about her in the lore, and she does have this fan. She does have this kind of big sweeping thing, but this thing's more made of batwing in her picture than it is of feathers, like you can see here. So this might not really be here. Another option was maybe the Golden Magus, who is from the Dreadfleet as well, but he's an Arabian dude, and he has a big, huge hat. So this does not look like him at all. But I wanted to discredit that as I figured someone would kind of bring that up. Another really cool one is Luis Cypher. And Luis Cypher is pretty cool because he's a Bretonnian Neckarch vampire. And Neckarch vampires have that same kind of huge, large, like Baroque ornament that comes out from the back of their robe that kind of droops over their head. And Neckarch vampires are something we have not seen in Total War Warhammer. I mean, we've seen blood dragons in their actual unit, the Blood Knights. We've seen Strigoi Ghoul Kings. We've seen von Karstein, but we haven't seen Lamian, and we haven't seen Neckarch vampires. So maybe this is their kind of edge into the Neckarch bloodline as the kind of pinnacle casters of the Vampire Count's lineage. I mean, these guys are level 5 wizards in the tabletop, if you remember that functionality. And he actually has a lot of dealings with elves, with dwarfs, and he spends a lot of time in Ulthuan. So if we look at this map, maybe he's kind of going to be up here in this area. The Sea of Chaos would also make a lot of good sense for a Van Geist starting location, right? I mean, Sartos is here, Galleon's Graveyard is here, and Vampire Coast is here. Van Geist would be great here. So would Louis Cypher, who'd be great around this area as well. I mean, he could be over in this region too, but I think that this would become too jam-packed with starting lords. I mean, the Bleak Coast would be a good location. And we've talked about the Bleak Coast as a possible location for Vampire Coast. Makes a lot of sense. Let's put him around there. But again, if you put him there, it's like, bam, 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 these 3 lords. There's not enough over here, I think, to really make sense for a lord to be there. I don't think. Maybe it's just too much. Or too little. I think you've got way more access to the rest of the ocean here. Now, Louis Cypher, I think, would be a cool lord again, just to have that Neckarch line in there. And Bretonnian heritage kind of has a really cool ring to it too. You don't hear about a ton of overwhelming ton of Bretonnian vampires. I mean, Dark Knight, Red Duke, Malabad. Wait a minute, maybe I'm full of shit there, right? But I think it'd be a really kind of a cool character to see. Now, the last one here is a really obscure one. This one is only found in a White Dwarf, and it depends on the actual version of White Dwarf. Is it US based? Is it UK based? But Diego Estregon would be a really cool addition here. He's an Estalian merchant, but he has, you know, exploits down to Araby, down to Cathay, and he kind of eventually falls into this grand pit with the dark arts, and he disappears from the world, but he comes back in this kind of summer campaign that Games Workshop did in Estregon's Island. And this island that pops up in random portions of the world. And I think that would be a really cool mechanic if we had Estregon's Island randomly popping up here. Maybe that would actually just be part of like the Vampire Coast actual campaign or something like that, and giving a nod to this. And maybe Diego Estregon is never going to be in the game, but maybe part of the campaign, Estregon's Island is involved or somewhere wrapped up in this. But it's really hard to say who this is. I'm to be totally honest, I'm kind of out of ideas here. There is another kind of more obscure reference you could pull to the Monstrous Arcanum, but it's honestly, it's so obscure. The Orsini Sardis of the Monstrous Arcanum. I mean, he has a Morngul, he has a Merworm. So that could be him. But again, I think this is a female character. I mean, I see a kind of a dress here. I see this fan. It looks to be that way, at least. So 2 lords, 2 ladies for our 4 legendary lords of the Curse of the Vampire Coast. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video here today. I will be doing a video that's more in-depth on Aranessa, on Van Geist, on Noctilus. We've already done one on Luther Harkin himself, but we'll go more in-depth on all these lords and ladies and talk a little bit more about their actual Dreadfleet lore blurbs. It's really cool for both of them, so we'll go into it a little bit more. But as always, guys, thanks so much for joining me here today. Don't forget to comment below. Let me know what you think that this 4th legendary lord is. Love to speculate with you guys until I'm blue in the face. But as always, guys, have a good one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and take care.